Once again, we're going to hear first from Dr. Brian Grimm, who is the founding president of the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation and works with top corporations to include religion and belief as part of their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Previously, Brian was the chair of the World Economic Forum's Council on the Role of Faith. He's been a Davos speaker, a TEDx speaker, has engaged with the Vatican as the director of global religion data at the and was the director of global religion data at the highly respected Pew Research Center, which we just mentioned a few moments ago. And Brian is a good friend, and we are excited to have you here, Brian. Thank you very much. I will pass the mic to you, sir.
Oh, thank you, James. Great to be with everyone this morning. My background shows I'm in New York, but that's just my dream office since I'm actually in Annapolis, Maryland, which isn't a bad place to be. It was great to be with James and some others last week here in Annapolis. So I have a presentation I'm going to share. I think I can, if you can enable the share screen.
Are you able to share now?
Okay, so let's see. Is that coming through okay, the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, so as James mentioned, I work with a lot of the large companies on including religion as part of their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. But today I'm going to speak more about business for peace and where that came from. But first, just some breaking news. Let me see if I can make this work. Some breaking news. Just 2 hours ago, I had my 14th grandchild born, and this is Yvonne Grimm, born out in Michigan. His brother was recently born in San Diego, and before that, his other brother was born in Japan. So, and then my son, who's holding him, is a doctor, and he was born in China in 1986. He was born in Northwest China in Xinjiang when I worked there. So anyhow, that's a little bit of personal. I mean, that's actually what peace is all about, that we have a better world for our kids, our grandkids, and so forth. But let me hop into my presentation. So I'm looking at business as a powerful force for interfaith understanding and peace. And this focus came from an initiative that former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon started back in 2013. It was with the UN Global Compact called Business for Peace Platform. And I was at Pew at the time, and then I left Pew and started the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation in 2014. And one of the first things they asked is if I could help them produce a report on how business can be a powerful force for supporting peace through interfaith understanding. And then we released that report, the center picture there, we released it in Bali, Indonesia in September 2014. And the presentation I'm giving is really includes some of the things that we reported on in that report, but many developments since then. And also what coming out of that initial work we did with the UN Global Compact Business for Peace platform, we set up a Global Business Interfaith Peace Award that we've been giving every year since 2016 in Rio de Janeiro, then Seoul, Korea, then Tokyo, Washington this past May. And then we're moving onwards to India. And at the end of my presentation, I'll invite everyone to join us in India as we gather together business leaders who are also committed to Sustainable Development Goal 16, which includes peace. So I'm going to look at 7 different ways that business works for peace and give you a video example. I'll let the businesses speak for themselves, or at least show you what's going on through some videos. So the first is through their messaging, second through business know-how, third education, advocacy, philanthropy, business itself, and peace within that spills out, which is, I think, one of the most exciting possibilities. So first, messaging. This video was one that was done by Coca-Cola, and it speaks for itself. So we'll see how they use their product and their advertising and messaging in ways that helps to build peace.
The relationship between India and Pakistan is one that has seen a lot of lows.
It's stressful, it's tense.
It seems it's not improving and it's getting worse.
It's only been 60 years that we have been apart. Before that, we were living harmoniously together.
I think all the strife would go away if you took away the barbed wires in the middle of the two countries.
It saddens me that we have this neighbor that we can't even go visit.
They have this perception which they've been trained in their heads that that's the bad guy. But when they actually meet them, they realize, you know what, he's just like me.
Mainly because there's no communication. They're near us, but we have no access to them. And it's sad, because together I think we would do wonders.
Creating an environment where young people can exchange ideas, thoughts, gestures, and take away that communication gap that exists.
If I have any opportunity to go to India, I'll surely go there.
The whole idea of actually touching hands, it's like communicating with each other without words, and that action speaks louder than anything else.
This is what we are supposed to do, right? We are going to take minor steps so that we are going to solve bigger issues.
It is more about, how similar we are as opposed to how different we are.
Togetherness, humanity, this is what we want. More and more exchange.
So beyond messaging, business know-how itself can build peace. One of the big problems in Indonesia that a business leader that you'll meet in the next video came across was that many of his employees weren't showing up for work because they had to take care of their children. They weren't getting educated. They couldn't get into schools. They couldn't get into the healthcare system because they didn't have a marriage license and the kids weren't couldn't get birth certificates and therefore get into the system. Estimated 40 million children were facing this problem in Indonesia, and then people weren't showing up for work. And the problem was that to get married in Indonesia, you need a government marriage license, and you also need to be married according to your religious tradition. And then there's all kinds of problems with the costs of weddings and dowries, et cetera. So all of this was preventing the next generation from getting into the system of education, healthcare, and so forth. And this is a story of what Y.W. Junardi, head of a large corporation in Indonesia, did to address that problem.
Indonesia is a religiously diverse country where cultural tensions are all too often exacerbated by local poverty. At the root of this dilemma is the problem that many parents can't afford the cost of marriage licenses, leaving their children without legal status, hindering their opportunities for education, future employment, and even healthcare. Y.W. Janardi, President Commissioner of P.T. Rajwali Corporation, has used his business know-how to address the problem. Collaborating with business, government, and religious institutions, he facilitates mass weddings, which are presided over by ministers of each faith. Through his efforts, thousands of couples and their children have gained immediate legal status and a renewed hope for the future.
So after that, the government asked him to help set up a better system so that marriages could be more easily certified in Indonesia. Next is through education and what business can do in educating people.
In the Holy Lands, differing religious, cultural, and historical claims are connected to ongoing conflicts. In response, Medinol CEO Dr. Judith Richter founded the NEAR School of the Heart to help high school students not only understand cardiovascular career opportunities, but also connect the hearts of people from different cultural, ethnic, and religious backgrounds. Dr. Richter helps students build bridges across cultures through the process of learning. As one of the graduates summed up the experience, the NEAR School of the Heart will make the whole Middle East a better place. The program has become widely popular and currently has 826 graduates who are functioning as ambassadors for peace, out of which 225 are also pursuing careers in medical-related professions.
So Dr. Richter gets students from Israel, Palestine, Jordan, from all the different faiths, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Druze, and then divides them into teams that they're a mixed religious and national teams, and then they have to compete against each other. So rather than their old identities that separated them, now they're working with a mixed group of people on the same team, competing with others, and it's just been phenomenally successful. I'll be with Judith at the end of this month in Israel. We're having a large conference, and we'll be sharing more about that. Next is advocacy.
King Hussein, Chairman and CEO of Span Construction and Engineering, has played a critical role in addressing the rising global tide of restrictions on religious freedom. King's efforts range from helping found the South Asian Consortium for Religion and Law Studies to helping kick off the first ever business roundtable to advance international religious freedom during the 2019 UN General Assembly in New York City. In diverse venues such as the Horasis Global Conference in Portugal and the IRF Summit in Washington, D.C., King shares how religious ethics benefit business. His advocacy also looks towards the next generation by his helping launch an initiative at BYU Hawaii to equip students from across Asia to know how to advance religious freedom when they return home.
And the connection between religious freedom and peace is one that I've demonstrated. The book that I published several years ago called The Price of Freedom Denied, Religious Persecution and Conflict in the 21st Century establishes clearly that when you have freedom of religion or belief respected by governments and groups in society, that results in peace and prosperity. So again, religious freedom and peace are directly related. Philanthropy.
During a 15-year civil war, many youth in Lebanon forewent their education as they became increasingly involved with religious fundamentalism, leading to unemployment and economic stagnation. Fuad Maksumi, CEO of Future Pipes Industries Group Limited, witnessed how his late son's youthful energy and cross-cultural savvy triggered exponential growth as his son provided a positive vision for productive and socially responsible business. Makhzoumi and his foundation have helped empower thousands by harnessing this same youthful enthusiasm for entrepreneurship and religious freedom. His microcredit training for Lebanese people of all faiths has helped over 10,000 individuals set up sustainable businesses, and hundreds of thousands more are receiving vocational training.
So the interesting thing about Makhzoumi and their work is that, he is a Sunni Muslim, and if you know the religious dynamics of Lebanon, intentionally set up the foundation healthcare, vocational training care centers in each of the different communities in Lebanon, in the Shia area, in the Christian areas, in the Druze areas, and others, intentionally empowering every community in Lebanon and not just his own. So the next is within business itself. So, and this is one that has so much power. The first is an example from Mozambique, and then the second will be from a global corporation. But when people have jobs and when there's hope for an economic future, then there's less chance that violence will occur when you have that economic hope. And people that are from a faith perspective often do business in unique ways, not saying ways that no one else could do, but they have different kinds of motivation. So this next one is from former vice president at the Hershey Foods Company, who gave up everything, his life in America, to move to Mozambique to work for peace through business from a faith-inspired model.
While it used to be a worldwide leader in cashew production, Mozambique is now one of the world's poorest nations. Banking policies and civil war led to extreme poverty across religious and cultural lines, leaving many widowed mothers and over 1.6 million orphans throughout the country. Don Larson, former vice president at the Hershey Company and founder and CEO of the Sunshine Nut Company, is working to revive Mozambique's economy and reverse the trend in broken families. Inspired by his faith and the belief that companies can have a profound impact, Don is working with people of all faiths to transform lives by helping provide jobs for over 50,000 people, and by donating 90% of his profits to support orphans, empower farmers, and strengthen the local infrastructure, helping to bring interfaith understanding and peace.
So if you're interested in the Sunshine Nuts, you can get a monthly subscription to them through Amazon, and you can subscribe, and my family does that to help support his business. So the last that I'm going to talk about is business within that spills out. And this connects to what was mentioned in the introduction, how I'm working with businesses to help them include faith and belief as part of their diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then I'll talk a little bit more about that afterwards. But this is a company among many that are now adding religion as part of their diversity initiatives.
The Intel Corporation is the most religiously inclusive Fortune 100 company in America, according to the Ready Index. Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger and Executive Vice President Sandra Rivera have helped create a culture where people can bring their whole selves to work, faith and all, thanks to solidly incorporating religious diversity into their overall diversity and inclusion commitments. Intel's embrace of religious inclusivity is seen in their willingness to officially sponsor a wide range of faith-based employee resource groups. These groups not only support members of their particular faiths, but work together in an interfaith association to support all employees at Intel to succeed in work and life. Indeed, a positive model for society at large.
So that their number one score was from the previous round, and this year the top scoring company in terms of religious diversity or religious inclusion in the workplace is American Airlines. And they're one of the sponsors of the next Global Business Interfaith Peace Awards that will be giving in India in 2023. So I'd like to invite everyone that's part of this call to nominate a business CEO. So hopefully some of the videos and people I've introduced you to, all of whom I know, hopefully these have given you some ideas of people in your network or something to look for in your network of a different ally, an ally you may not have considered in your peace building efforts, and that's business. And so American Airlines is now our global partner for our Global Business Interfaith Peace Awards, which we call Dare to Overcome the differences that divide us. And building allyship among diverse communities is our tagline. We have many partners in this. Some of the key one in India is the MIT World Peace University. That is devoted to building peace through the connection of spirituality and science. Also, the Templeton Religion Trust is one of our partners, and many others. So if this has stimulated any ideas, be on the lookout for people in your networks that are running businesses, maybe even some of your donors who are working in this space, and we'd love to shine a light on the good that they're doing and the peace building initiatives that they're making. So again, we looked at seven different ways that businesses can help to build peace and through inclusive societies, through their messaging, like we saw in the Coca-Cola advertisement, business know-how, YW Janardi in Indonesia, through education, like Judith Richter, in bringing people, even educating them about cardiovascular business, but in the same time connecting their hearts. Or advocacy, King Hussein, who's very active in supporting initiatives that build interfaith understanding, religious freedom, and peace. Philanthropy, businesses like the Makhzoumis in Lebanon, supporting foundations that bring people together. Business itself, setting up businesses in conflict zones that empower people and give hope, or just this large movement within corporations like Intel, American Airlines, Texas Instruments, many other companies, Google, building peace within by giving a space for people of all their faiths and beliefs to be welcomed at work themselves. So with that, I'll end my presentation and then open for some questions.
Brian, thank you so much. It's amazing how much you have accomplished. The last time I think I saw your presentation, we were together with then Ambassador for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback. And that was several years ago, pre-COVID. And so absolute congratulations to you for this success. You've gotten so much accomplished. It's so wonderful to see these different businesses, significant businesses engaged with you on this theme. I think sometimes we, in the peace building world, think that business is not attentive to some of these issues. And really is just kind of focused on the bottom line. And I realize that's part of why religious freedom is important to them, but it's also extraordinary to see the examples of people who are really just trying to have a positive impact through the role of their businesses. So anyone, please feel free to use the raise hand feature or to put a question in the chat. In advance of that, I don't see right now questions. So Brian, I have one for you. When we've talked about religious freedom and religious literacy type themes in spaces like education spaces, other places where people may have their own strong faith convictions and may not know much about other faith traditions, sometimes there's a resistance to this idea of religious freedom or religious literacy because it's seen as maybe challenging or weakening the dominant faith perspective, or even just a space that is seen as necessarily secular, like business, I imagine sometimes is. Have you encountered that kind of concern or fear or resistance from folks who think, well, you're trying to religify this sector? and it shouldn't. That's something that we shouldn't do. And how have you addressed that?
Yeah, well, I think it's a big question, because you don't want to push, the opposite of religious freedom is religious coercion. So to push people to have a religion or embrace religion in ways. So you can think of it in any of the other diversity categories, so what have been some of the best practices in that? So you think of women, and gender equality, gender equity. So you want to promote women, but at the same time not make men feel bad, not make men feel like they should resign from the workplace and just just leave. You want to build a community where everyone is welcome. So I think it's the same approach with religion, that you have to say, no, this is about religion and belief. And some of those beliefs may be non-theistic or even atheistic. But we want people, if they have deeply held beliefs, that they can express their identity. Just like, there's been a lot of move to, gender identity, and there's been a lot of LGBT advocacy and other kinds of, identities. Religion is, to many people, is just as important. I'll give one example. A senior vice president at a large insurance company, she worked her way up the ladder, and now she's one of the top leaders of the company. And for years, every time she'd get a new promotion, they'd say, "Wow, isn't this great? Another glass ceiling broken for women." And she always felt a little bit hollow. These are her words, because she said, my core identity is that I'm a Christian, and I'm doing, everything I do is in service of God, and my company doesn't recognize that. That's what's motivating me to be the best I can be in the workplace. And then finally, she said, when the company recognized and opened the door for that religious expression, and they recognized that was what was motivating her, it just redoubled her, her enthusiasm for what she was doing at work. So it's not that, this is, in all the companies I work with, to do this right, it has to be done well and planned. You have to think through the questions like you're asking, how's this going to make others feel? And so in some of the companies, they've had different kinds of events to introduce this, so that people get over their, sort of their reaction to it. And then the last thing I'd say is that within the large corporations, these movements are employee-led but company-sponsored. So it's not that the boss says, "Hey, we need to have a Muslim group and a Christian group and a whatever group," but are the people interested in that work here, and why would it help them to organize in these ways? And then they make the case to the business, and then the business, the leaders will respond to that. So it works so much better when it's organic and natural, and also pluralistic, so that it's not just the Muslims get a prayer room for Friday and nobody else gets anything. So it's got to be, again, that diversity, equity, and inclusion. So make sure any group that has a need feels like they can bring that up and be welcomed.
That's great. You make a couple of, I think, really important points. Inclusion around freedom of religion also needs to attend to those who do not have a traditional or any faith expression that they embrace. Oftentimes we forget the agnostic and atheist categories or communities should be part of the narrative around freedom of religion and belief.
Yeah.
And this idea that it's about broad inclusion and shouldn't be oppositional. You mentioned the other day when we had lunch together, there was a story you were telling about the different groups actually were able to elevate their value set around areas of interest on social issues, and realized they were all concerned about the same social issues from their faith perspective. So it actually brought them together across faith distinctions to do work in the community together.
Yeah, well, the example you're talking about is from Dell Technologies, that they a few years ago, they set up their Dell Interfaith employee resource group, and it has thousands of members in it. And they got together, and they, you know, all the different faiths and beliefs, and they said, what's an issue that we're really concerned about that we think our company should pay attention to? And it was human trafficking. And then as they started to educate themselves more on human trafficking, they realized it's not just an issue that people of faith are concerned about, but everybody. So they went to the company and asked the vice president for diversity, hey, could we get all the diversity groups working on this? The Pride group, the women's group, the veterans group, the Asian group, the young employees group, all these different diversity groups. And as they reached out to them, they said, we're concerned about that too. So by opening the door to faith, then Dell now has engaged in a global campaign to combat and end human trafficking. And it was all led by opening the door to faith. But it wasn't a kind of exclusionary. It was faith that then includes everybody into common cause. And so, I mean, that's what helps make this work is not, within the companies, they said, we're not focusing on dogma and doctrine, we're focusing on celebrating our differences. We don't water down, you don't water down that, you believe what you believe, and you might think the others are wrong. You don't water that down, but you look for ways that we can celebrate our differences, explain our differences, but then find areas where we can work together for common cause. So I think it's a great formula for, not just what goes on in the company, but isn't that what would help bring peace everywhere?
Well, thank you again, Brian. What an inspiring story. We I think sometimes think of corporations as these big sort of faceless, monolithic creatures that maybe we can affect as people in the marketplace, but it's important to remember, and I think you highlight it very well, that the corporation is also made up of people, and so people within the space can effectively direct the attention of such a big and powerful entity as a corporation to do good things in the world. So this is very inspiring. I think we would love to have your permission to connect you to people if they'd like to hear more.
Yeah, please do. And again, my request that you nominate some people. You can find this. It's daretovercome.org, or a shorter one is DTO.world, and then you can find the nomination. And the last thing I'll just say is, it's not that religion holds secrets that that other people can't find, but from my own Catholic and my own Catholic faith, one of the emphasis in Catholic teaching is a focus on the worker. And Joseph, being the stepfather or the surrogate father of Jesus, he was a worker, a laborer. And so when Catholics think about work, we think about the working people, the people who are doing the work. And so, I think that's one of the things when you bring faith to the equation, then you might look at a business a little bit differently. It's not just Google is what we, do when we want to find information, but hey, there's tens, hundreds of thousands of people that work at Google, and they themselves have an impact on the world. And so, so I think faith brings a lot, when we draw on our faith, we sometimes look at the world through that lens, and that opens new vistas for understanding and peace.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Brian. I see a question from Felipe. We will try to forward some of these questions, if there are additional questions, to the speakers, so we can maintain the schedule. And then, Brian, perhaps you can respond via email or something to Felipe. I'll pass that along to.
And sorry, I have to catch an airplane, so I have to take off, but thank you. And I look forward to any further questions and contact.
All right. Thanks again, my friend. Safe travels.
Thanks. Bye-bye.